Good day, everybody, and welcome to Small Biz Aid Live. Our session today is entitled, Your Customers Have Thoughts. And in a moment, I will introduce you to your session moderator. Please use our session's Q&A section to ask any questions you might have, and please feel free to do so throughout the session. I will review questions and direct them to our moderator, but please be aware our audience size might mean that your specific question will not be answered. But please do join our alignable small business groups at the end of this session to continue the dialogue. Links to these groups will be provided in chat throughout the session and are also posted on our agenda at smallbizaid.org. It's now my pleasure to introduce your session moderator, Maureen Plowman.
Thanks so much, Dave, and hello, Small Business Aid. As Dave mentioned, I'm Maureen Plowman. I am the Vice President of Marketing at Alignable, so a special hello to all of our Alignable members that are joining us today. I'm excited to be here today. I mentioned if you were in our last session on meeting online demands, I just have a special place in my heart for small business owners. I feel like they are the heart and souls of our communities. And so we've lucky enough to have some great speakers today who are going to give you some tips to really help you grow your business. And so let's get to it. So our all-star panel right now is Ben Fisher, who is the co-founder and lead consultant at Steady Demand. He's also a platinum Google My Business product expert. So great to be talking to us today about customer reviews. And then Mike Blumenthal. Mike is the co-founder of Near Media. He analyzes local trends. He's also an advisor at Leadferno, which is an SMS communication tool for local businesses, and Air.cam, which is a provider of the world's most innovative local photography. And Mike also previously co-founded Local U and Gather Up. And then Dennis Yu, who is the CTO at Blitz Metrics, will be joining us hopefully in a bit as well. But as I mentioned, I'll mention this in my last session, I'm going to push you guys to give us your secret tips today, not just the ones that you pass on to just anybody, but really the extra special ones. So why don't you each just say a quick hello to our audience and just share a little bit about why you're excited to be here today. Ben, do you want to go first?
Sure, why not? So hi, everybody. Welcome. Really excited to be here. Been in the digital marketing space since 1994. I kind of started out in local before local was even a thing, up in Flagstaff, Arizona, working with small merchants back in the 90s, and migrated out to the enterprise side in the 2000s. And in the last decade, basically have switched back into local. And I think you really hit the nail on the head, Maureen, and that is that small businesses, it's a great area to focus on because that's our backyard, and supporting our small businesses and medium-sized businesses is really imperative. And this is a great topic. Reviews, it fuels business. Over to you, Mike.
So I had the unpleasant job of having to close a family business that had been open for 60 years in 2001. Obviously, still painful. Local business. And at that point, I got into local marketing. And when I experienced reviews, I fell in love with them. When my children were young, they used to say to me, when I would say I'd love broccoli, they'd say, "Why don't you marry it?" That was their sense of humor. And I have asked myself, why don't I marry reviews? I love them so much. The customer has been given, you now have to tell your brand story together with your customer. And you can only do that by winning with great customers, telling a great brand story. And I think reviews have tremendous possibility that largely go untapped in today's world. Everybody's worried on the next review, getting the next review, when there's such a rich amount of things that you can do with it, from social proof to business analysis, that I think they're largely, even still, underrated in terms of their potential.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think they are the most important tools for building and growing a successful business. They establish your brand's credibility. They improve search engine visibility. They help you get more customers, obviously what we're here to talk about today. So I was looking at some stats as I was kind of thinking about this panel, and a few of the things I read was that 95% of customers read reviews before making a purchase. And again, especially today, digital first world, the reputation of both yourself and your business becomes so much more important. 93% of customers will read reviews of local businesses to determine its quality. For every 1-star increase that a business gets on Yelp, they see a 5 to 9% increase in revenue. And then the other one was 92% of B2B buyers are more likely to purchase after reading a trusted review. So really just underscoring the importance. So today we're going to cover making reviews your best sales tool, the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media reviews. It's always a hot topic. And then the review to click to call connection. So why don't we start with, and you touched on it a little bit, but Mike and Ben, if you want to share a little bit about how important are customer reviews to your own businesses, and then just some ways that you use them.
Sure. For our own business, right? Like Steady Demand? That's
yes.
What you want? So the way that we use reviews, because we are a very business to business focused kind of company, right? The way we use reviews is kind of like our business card. It's an interactive business card, I guess you could say. So we use it as, social proof. And since we deal with like a lot of suspensions and we deal with a lot of like complex Google My Business issues, then what we do is we basically say, hey, look, yes, you see we're, platinum product experts with Google My Business, been around for a long time. But you know what? I'm not going to try and sell you on myself. I want you to let my customers speak to you because they've had the experience with us already. And, they're the ones who have seen us, talk to them, on Christmas Eve to get them reinstated, for instance. And so just go ahead and have them just read our reviews. Also, because we're dealing with a lot of, again, suspensions, people are very, very emotional when it happens because they've lost their livelihood basically at this point. So what I tell them is I say, look at our reviews whenever you're feeling anxious, scared, any kind of negative emotion that you have because of what you're going through. Just go read reviews from other people. In other words, it's about just really transferring the experience. And it's not me giving that experience because I can say I'm great all day long, right? I don't think so, but I can say it. And why would you believe this? You don't know me, but if you read what my customers have to say and you trust that what they're saying is real, that can give you that confidence and make you feel better. And really, also for those who are on the fence and thinking about, well, should I do this? Should I not do this? By reading the reviews, that gives them the confidence, again, more confidence to be able to go ahead and place that order. So, yeah, Mike, over to you.
So I'm currently consulting and working on 4 businesses. So which one do you want? The one where I use the reviews the most or my most recent one?
I would say whatever ones all of them, or whatever ones you feel are most relevant.
Well, I just started a new business, which is Near Media, which is a consulting and media company that works on local, and I am an analyst there. There we use first-party reviews, which I think are incredibly important. We have a newsletter, and after 10 days of receiving our newsletter, we send out a survey where we ask for NPS scores, Net Promoter Score, which we think is a critical metric. We ask 4 survey questions and then free-form review feedback so that we can improve our product. It's a new product. We use surveys to revise our product regularly. So that's my most recent business. In GatherUp, which I helped create and where I'm still I guess I am now founder emeritus. That's where I sit around and smoke my pipe and have patches on my elbows. There we use it both for consumer surveys, NPS. We then also use it as a tool to create content for the website. We use it as a tool to create social proof on the website. And we use it as Ben noted, third-party validation of who we are. Well, so we use the full stack of reviews there as opposed to Near Media where we're just using it to help us understand these new customers and what they want.
Okay. So Ben, when you think about best practices and some really easy tips that people could kind of take away from the conversation today about how to leverage customer reviews?
Sure, how to leverage customer reviews. So, one of the things that Mike just talked about was like first-party reviews, right? First-party reviews are, I think, important, and they're one of probably the most underutilized things when it comes to getting reviews. Most people think that I'm just going to go ahead and get reviews. I'll get it on Google or Yelp or Facebook or whatever the case may be. But really, those first-party reviews, they're gold. They're not going online. They're going direct to you. But you can reuse them on your website. And more importantly, you can really learn about your business. And you can do it in kind of almost an unfiltered way. So, every business has something that they don't do well or right. And we hate to think about these kind of things, of course, but we're human beings. We make mistakes, things happen. And those first party reviews, they're gold because they can uncover those things for us and we can kind of basically reflect on them and fix our business processes based on that kind of information. As far as some like little tips, one stat that I always like to think about is that I believe it's 89% of people will look at your reviews that you've had within the last 2 weeks. So the freshness of your reviews really does matter. And this is on like third-party sites and like Google or Facebook. And so if you think about it in that vein, that when people are evaluating you, that they're looking at those last 2 weeks, well, that means that you need a constant kind of fresh stream of reviews coming in. Even if you're in a business kind of entity that doesn't get a lot of reviews, try to kind of schedule that cadence out, ask your customers for reviews. And then more importantly, the stats pretty much almost the same, but people are looking for the replies to those reviews as well. So you really need to pay attention and reply to those reviews. And when you're replying to the review, is not only replying in a sense for the person who left the review, but more importantly, you want to leave the reply for the person who is reading those reviews, because they're going to read your replies. And I've seen some really nasty replies. So it's Mike. So with that, over to you, Mike.
So the question was how to leverage reviews, and you want our deepest, darkest secrets.
Yes, and then also we just had a question come in for you, just to tag on to what you said before, Mike, about the survey. Someone was wondering what were the 4 questions you use in your survey?
So we use GatherUp because I helped create it in our survey. So obviously I have a vested interest in it. In that because we're surveying at Near Media around our email product, we're asking about the frequency, the content, the interest levels, and how relevant it is to people. The survey is easily, at GatherUp, the survey is easily configurable. It's 4 0 to 10 questions that you can just click. So it takes literally a minute to fill out. We have found that brief surveys get 95% more data than long surveys. And so we just use them regularly. In terms of a secret, I don't know if it's secret, but I think, obviously I believe in leveraging reviews to their fullest capability. And in terms of taking an aspect of them that speaks to SEO, social conversion, and website, is many small businesses have trouble developing website content that's fresh. I say, let the customer say it for you. At GatherUp, we developed specifically to solve this problem. And I'm sorry, I no longer really work there every day, but I just think it was a brilliant solution. And that is that we can segment reviews topically based on products or services, and then feed them in real time to those pages. So the pages are kept updated in real time with current reviews, first party, Google, Facebook. We don't use Yelp reviews because Yelp is kind of nasty and has become largely less relevant. And your stat about Yelp is outdated. It was from 2013. Yelp has largely declined in that time frame. But we think using reviews as website content tailored to each specific local landing page or product or service landing page or location, service area, provides tremendous benefit across the whole range of marketing. Hi, Dennis. How are you? Been a long time since we've said hello.
Hey,
Hi,
Dennis.
Dennis.
You are muted, my friend.
Oh,
And now we can't hear you.
like you might be on mute, Dennis.
So anyways, while we're waiting for Dennis to get his phone worked out, I mean, I think looking at reviews as a rich source of fresh, relevant content that can feed the search engines from your website is a very powerful use of them.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree with Mike on that. I mean, that's the other, I mean, again, we're going kind of back to the whole beauty of first party reviews is that, technically you're not supposed to take, say, reviews from Google My Business and put them on your site. It's against their guidelines. Will they penalize you? Probably not. But you're not supposed to. With first party reviews, you can do whatever you want with them because they're yours. So very nice.
Right.
Good to have.
That makes sense. So you did bring up, another review site. So, given small businesses are strapped for time, what are the sites they should be in? What are the third-party sites they should be investing in for and spending time on with reviews, in addition to those first-party ones?
Sure, I'll go first. Why not? So basically, I think it depends on where your customers are, right? So if you're like a landscaping business or if you're a lawyer, Google's probably going to end up being your go-to because most of your business is going to be coming from there. If you're a lawyer, you might want to look at third-party sites like, Avo, for instance, which is a lawyer-specific site. You might want to focus on Yelp, say if you're a restaurant. But just mix it up basically. And, Facebook will, of course, but I'd say you focus on your primary ones, that are going to give you the best bang for your buck. But again, always just think about where your customers are going to be, really. Mike?
So in terms of where your customers are going to be, a simple way to determine that is to do a brand search in Google, type your business name into Google, see what review sites return your listing. Those are ones that are going to rank highest for your name. So those are an obvious place to think about, whether they're a vertical site or a horizontal site like Facebook. So for me, it's Google. If you're active on Facebook, then Facebook, and then a vertical site in your industry. I would also look at a few of your competitors. The goal at Google is to get up to 3 sites that show on that first page with the stars, so that when they do your brand search, you can see that you're not just doing good on Google, but you're doing good every place, telling a consistent brand story. So I'd work towards the review sites that would fill that space. And that's a little different by industry, by brand, by many different things. So do the brand search of yourself and then of your competitor and see which review sites show up there. Yelp has declined dramatically in importance, and while they continue to be present in mind, my research indicates that they are falling way off in terms of impact or in most businesses, even in the restaurant space. But that's a personal bias that I happen to have.
Yeah, and Mike brings up a really amazing point. It's a good point, and I don't think a lot of people think about this. But the whole brand, controlling your brand story as much as possible. It's a reputation thing, but it's a getting business thing. And when you search for your business name, quite a few different things are going to pop up. But those review sites that are going to pop up, absolutely. By getting reviews on there, you can start to control the narrative. And, for instance, I see a lot of people that say they have a Better Business Bureau profile. They're not accredited, right? And somebody will go leave a negative review. They don't even know it until until we search for their name, we do an audit, we're looking around, we're looking at BBB. It's like, oh, do you have a negative review here and the BBB ranks number 3 for your business name? I think you really should think about getting accredited and start getting other reviews left here, maybe. And usually people who do end up benefiting from that.
Okay, I'll take a few questions that just came in. And actually, let's just check in for a minute with Dennis. Dennis, can you hear us now?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Hey, welcome to the conversation.
Welcome, guys.
Great to have you here. So again, just a reminder, Dennis joins us as the CTO of Blitz Metrics, and he's also the author of Facebook Nation, which is a textbook used in over 700 colleges and universities. So Dennis, you'll be definitely a good asset as we pivot to talk about social media reviews. So let me just take a few questions first that have come in, Dennis, and then we'll move over to talk a little bit about social media reviews. So someone's asking, they have testimonials on their website, fantastic. Do they really need to worry about other review sites then if they're if they're already kind of including some testimonials?
So can I answer? I'll take that first, or is you guys directing that to Dennis? I'm sorry. So from my point of view, a testimonial is not as powerful as a review in the sense that it is perceived by the public as self-selected. I think one of the problems I see with a lot of businesses that use testimonials is they don't update them. The other issue is that most conversions for most industries are not happening on your website anymore. Your website is feeding data, and conversions are actually happening at Yelp, at Google, at Facebook. And so I think it is important that you be everywhere your customer is. And what I see in my research, I was looking at a jeweler the other day where in 2016, 70% of their conversions, i.e. phone calls and driving directions, were occurring on Google. When I looked at them last month, 90% of their conversions were happening there, but 5% on the website and 5% elsewhere. So the website has, because of the way Google is structuring mobile search results and how they're including so much more information, the website, particularly in new customer discovery, is becoming less important. Not that it isn't important to feed Google data and to rank at Google and and it depends a lot on your industry, but you have to understand in your industry it's going to be different, but you want to be sure that you get them every place where your customers are.
Great. Ben, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, Mike pretty much said that very succinctly. There's not much more to it. I mean, I'm just going to agree, basically, is really what
All
it
right.
comes
Well,
down
so you're
to.
giving Mike a great review then for what he just said.
Yeah, and it's not a testimonial; it's a review.
Right.
No,
There you go.
So Ben, when we're done, would you go out and do that at Google? I have a new listing there. It's Mike.
Absolutely, I've had an experience with you. No,
all right. So let's
seriously,
talk a little bit about social media. So, the good, the bad, the ugly. Dennis, maybe kick us off a little bit and talk a little bit about what makes reviews on Facebook or Twitter different from other sites. And then, how do you use those reviews to create better customer experiences?
Yeah. First off, if you want to get more traffic on social media, whether it's local or B2B, we've got dozens of examples. I want to reframe how you think about the idea of a review. Everything is a review. When someone clicks like, it's a review. Leaves a comment. When someone rates you 5 stars, that's a review. When you engage with somebody, when someone checks in, that's a review. And each of these reviews carries a certain points weighting, especially like on Facebook, for example. And I was in a meeting with Facebook's engineering team talking about the algorithm and advertising and this kind of thing. And we generally agreed that a like is worth 1 point, comment's worth 6 points, a share is worth 13, negative feedback's worth a minus 100. So what does that mean? And why is that the case? Well, the more effort, the more you have to put your reputation on the line, the more that's going to count. So if I make a 1-minute video with Ben Fisher, the first time I met Ben was in 2008 at PubCon when he was doing the tech agency. It was a tech pub or tech something agency.
it was like right? TechPad. We were working with hosting companies.
And while we were both fellow speakers on the circuit, just like with Mike, imagine if we made a 1-minute video and I said, Ben absolutely dominates when it comes to Google reviews and GMB management, right? Or that would be a testimonial, but a testimonial is obviously slanted because it's just like looking at somebody's referrals, right? Of course it's slanted. But what if I say, hey, Ben, what are the top 3 tips on managing your GMB? And he said, well, Dennis, it's 1, 2, 3, and I made that as a video. And I shared that. That is way more powerful than a testimonial. So one of our friends, Tommy Mello, runs A1 Garage, and he's the largest home services provider in the U.S. He's got trucks all over the place. You'll see his billboards, right? And what do we get his techs to do when they go out and install a new garage? Instead of saying, will you leave a review, which we do get reviews, but he says, hey, as part of our process, my compensation is based on how, the great feedback I get. Would you be willing to let me ask you a couple questions that we share on social media? And they pull out their phone. Of course, they say, why, yes, of course. And they collect that quick feedback. Hey, how did I make you feel today, right? Can you tell me about how the service went? And tell me about you. Oh, I'm a mom, and I have 3 kids, and we just moved into this house, whatever it might be. And then that stuff goes back to central for processing with all the VAs, and then that gets distributed across all the different social channels, and it gets posted to GMB as a new post, right? So it creates tons and tons of content. What do you think? I'd be curious to see, like Mike, Ben, or Maureen, what do you guys think about the power of doing something like that, where you've integrated it as part of your operation, so all your people are collecting content and they're trained to use their phone in this way, versus all these different review sites or through email, you say, hey, and these tools say, hey, I'd love if you'd leave me a 5-star review. Here's a link, click on it.
I mean, from where I sit, reviews need to be integral to everything you do, and feedback needs to be integral. I think John Jantz called it a referral engine. And that engine starts at the top of the funnel with often third-party sites, comes through the sale, and then when you make contact with that person, explaining to them that you're going to ask them, and then asking them, and then leveraging that content every which way. I mean, part of what you're saying makes all kinds of sense. The value of third-party is it requires, and first-party, automated, it requires a little bit less employee interaction, which is sometimes difficult to get, but your suggestion is a great one. I would say you can do often the same things with written reviews. And we did this at GatherUp. Again, sorry, I don't mean to plug them, but it was where we allowed it to be automatically posted to Facebook, Twitter, your website, and elsewhere, right? Social content, Instagram. And so same thing can happen there. I mean, the point being, you have all this review content. You should leverage it every way you can, because it, particularly third party, is perceived as an relatively independent endorsement. I agree.
The specific reviews inside Facebook, for example, and you could say the same kind of for Twitter and Instagram, and the other ones don't actually count for very much. I thought that was a big deal. So for my company, I think I was at 4.8 stars and maybe 110 reviews, something like that. That's not too bad, right? And then somebody who didn't like me went and bought 100 fake one-star reviews. And all of a sudden, my overall tanked to something like 2.4 or whatever the number is. Now I've got, 300 reviews. And I was afraid, thinking that would hurt me. I found that didn't really matter at all. I complained to Facebook saying, hey, is there a way to report these fake reviews? Is there anything we can do? And there was nothing. And I saw lots and lots of people had the same issue. And going down that path is when I realized that the social media engines realize that those don't really count for very much. What counts is a real signal. Just like in SEO, if you got 100 links that you bought from crappy sites versus real links from high authority sites, like being covered in the media or being on the Alignable blog, right, Maureen, that they understand that there's real, it's not how many reviews or the number of stars, it's the quality of those signals. And social media hasn't gotten to the point of being able to screen that stuff out. So how do you do an authentic signal? It's when someone else tags you who is a mutual friend in the same, just like, with SEO, the right neighborhoods and high authority and followed by the same kinds of people, all those kinds of signals of trust, when they make a video, which is harder to fake, at least in 2021, and mentioning you. My friend, also named Mike, is a chiropractor in Chicago. And what he does, who wants to talk about it? The chiropractor fixed my back, whatever it is. But what he does is he goes into local coffee shops and he started this when COVID hit, and he put down $100 as a tab in his name. And he'd say, hey, anyone who mentions my name, if you're a first responder or you're a single mom or whatever it is, mention my name and the coffee's on me, right? And then he interviews that, saying, hey, I'm with Maureen Plowman's Coffee, and I've been going to Maureen every morning to get my caffeine fix. She's amazing. Maureen, tell us about your place here. Oh, well, here's what's on the menu, and we have these scones. Awesome. And I like Maureen so much, I'm putting $100 down. And anyone who mentions, Ben Fisher, chiropractic, I'm going to take care of you. And I'm so glad that, if you're a first responder, my hat's off to you. And that's generated tons of engagement on social, you can imagine, which it increases the edge rank. We do the same thing on Twitter, Instagram, whatnot. We've done this for 80 other service providers. It works like a charm. But you see how this is the exact opposite, because you're leaving a review for someone else, and then in exchange, they're going to say as part of the video, hey, yeah, I love, Mike, he comes in every morning for his coffee, and whatever it is, right? When you say something good about them, they do the same for you, just like on LinkedIn. So I'll leave a good review for someone I work with, or I'll say, hey, I was with Mike Blumenthal at this conference, and this guy has got the best knowledge when it comes to local, and he's done it forever. Or I'll say something specific, right? That then reciprocity, he's more likely to leave a review for me. So if you're in B2B, think about it this way. Think about how when you're interviewing other people or giving accolades, how much of that's going to pass back to you, especially if, let's say, I want Mike Blumenthal on my podcast talking about local. That's going to carry a ton of weight.
I'll come. Just send me an invite. I'll be there.
I'm going to do that because I know it's a great opportunity to elevate Mike in front of my audience at the same time as part of it. But what happens in the beginning of a podcast or the beginning of this Blue Jeans session, right? Maureen's going to say, Ben is amazing, Mike's amazing, Dennis is amazing, because you have to. You're not going to say, oh, yeah, folks like Mike and Ben, they're kind of knowledgeable. No, you're going to say they're absolutely amazing, right? Because they are.
We wouldn't have them on if they weren't, though, right? Because
Right.
because the audience trusts them, and think that's kind of what
Yeah.
you're getting to is that you have this trusted relationship, and that's when you kind of both refer each other.
Well,
And I do think today there has to be you have to be open to new ideas of how you do it. But I think one of our questions was how do you ask for reviews? So Dennis, you just gave a great example. Ben or Mike, any tips for how you would actually go about asking your customers for reviews?
Yeah, if I may answer that first, I would bake it into your process. So as soon as you find a new client, you introduce yourself and suggest that you will work really hard to earn a review, and you hope that when you do and you exceed clients' expectations, that they will leave you a review. So it starts right in your first contact. When you're done with that process, wherever the logical conclusion is, if you're a lawyer, it's when you hand them the check for the settlement or some other point in the process. You then say, gee, we talked about it. Are you happy? Yes. Will you consider leaving me a review? Great. And then I would follow that up with an automated ask to be sure that you get it. Now, what happens is in every industry, that's going to generate some percentage response. Not everybody's going to respond. You'll get what you get. Might be 5%, might be 10%, might be 20%. But by automating it and baking it into the process, it happens every time. You ask every customer, good, bad, or indifferent. You don't try to filter them in any way, and you will find that it will help you improve your business and improve your sales.
Yeah, I would add
I
to,
think.
I was just
Go
going to
ahead,
say,
Ben.
I would just add to that a little bit, and that is that, in those automated processes, having a text-based solicitation type of system is also pretty powerful. We find that, and Mike, I'd love to hear your stats on this, but we find that customers that use text-based end up getting around 60% more reviews than without. So if you've got your email, you've got your point of sale, because I think the point of sale is your best one personally, and then you've got text-based solicitation. At that point, you're pretty much covering a lot of your bases. I just want to touch really quickly on something that Dennis was saying, because I think there's some smart stuff, really smart stuff going on here, and I just want to highlight it. You're talking about two different things, right? You're talking about basically creating social proof, number one, and you're also talking about something which has always been called other people's audiences. So you're taking advantage of somebody else's audience. You're creating that social proof, and in that sense, it's much more passive, I think, than say reading somebody's review, because now you're consuming content and you're getting kind of like almost a hybrid of a testimonial and a review at the same time without even really asking for it. And I think that's the beautiful part about it. And I think that's actually why it works, and it probably works so well. But yeah, anyway, sorry. Go on. I just wanted to bring that up, Maureen, real quick.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I do think though that sometimes people get nervous to ask, and I think if you think about your best customers, they want to help you and they want to give reviews. My husband has an event business, and he follows up after every event with a thank you. How could I have done better? Would you be willing to provide feedback? And automatically he gets a glowing review. So I think it's don't be afraid to ask your customers. I think they do want to help you. So I think we touched on this earlier, just about the importance of responding to reviews, but I saw a nice, interesting quote this morning that says, a brand not responding on Twitter is like hanging up the phone on customers with millions watching. And so I'd love to just talk a little bit about the importance of both replying to positive reviews, but then also the importance of, and I think, Ben, you touched on this earlier, of replying even to negative reviews. What are some tips to do both, and why do you think it's important?
Sure. I guess I'll start. So basically, I'm a full believer that responding to your positive reviews and your negative reviews is imperative. If we look back at that stat, we were talking about, which is, I think 89% of people looking at reviews have been left in the last 2 weeks, right? But that doesn't mean that all the reviews previous to that are not important. I had a client ask me once, so they actually last week, they're like, we just got reinstated and we have this backlog of all these reviews. We've got about 200 reviews that have been left for us over the past couple of years. And we're just starting to put in place a reputation management, process basically. And they asked the same question: should we respond to all of these reviews? And they're like, we really don't have the bandwidth to do this. And what I basically told them is that, look, these reviews are gold. Some users are going to have that behavior where they look at the past 2 weeks. Some users are going to go look at the lowest scored reviews, which could be years ago. Some are going to look at just the positive reviews. So you need to touch on all of those because, again, the prospect is going to behave differently based on what their needs are and what their intent was. So what I usually state is this, is I say, okay, first of all, address those first 2 weeks, 3 weeks if you want to be really safe about it. Then go back and hit your negative reviews. Why? Because people want to see what bad experiences others have had. So, and they really want to see how you're going to respond to those reviews. So that's number one. Number two is go for the negative reviews and then backfill your positive reviews after that. Because people do like to be acknowledged, even if it's a year later, and those also bubble up, by the way, as well, too. So, so take a really holistic approach, basically, to everything. And one thing I really like to stress is how you deal with negative reviews, because everybody hates negative reviews. We feel very personal. Well, it does feel personal. It's like, how dare you attack my business and say XYZ was, a racist or whatever the case may be, or, we didn't provide good service. And so you need to approach these, again, from the prospect of how are people going to look at this from the outside looking in. And if you look at that, then you basically are going to come at the review with understanding, with empathy, and you want to direct somebody to a good experience. You want to direct them to call or email or something. And even if it's a fake review, by the way, fake reviews, you still need to respond to those because somebody doesn't necessarily know it's fake. So with that, Mike?
I would say that, firstly, that you've probably lost the negative review customer, but your response is for your future customers. They want to see that you're a reasonable human being and that you responded reasonably. As far as responding to fake reviews, before you respond, you have to make every effort to get it taken down because Google sees a response as a validation of a review, even if it's fake. So before you respond to a fake review, you really want to go through the steps of reporting it from within Google, for example, or where, in the case of Facebook, there, as Dennis pointed out, there is no reporting it. But whatever the mechanism is, most of these sites have a mechanism before you respond to it. And then if Google refuses to take it down, then you can respond. But remember that the audience for these responses is typically your future customers. They just want to see that you're a reasonable human being in light of your failure. And you have to be a little careful about making promises because if you don't keep them, then you're even going to be judged more harshly. So I had one client who actually called him up, paid him off, to remove the review. Not sure I recommend it, but it's a tactic.
Yeah, I think you said a key word, it's respond, right? So it's even for those negative reviews, it's respond, not react. That's I think hard sometimes. Dennis, anything to add in for that on how you would respond to both positive and negative reviews?
I agree with what Ben and Mike are saying. Always respond to positive and negative. And in terms of not having the time, do you not have more room in your bank account, right? Last time I checked, you do. And you could hire VAs, put in process, there's software. But something further than that, I'm going to say two things. One is that you mentioned, Maureen, for example, Twitter. You don't have to be on every single channel. The fact that somebody could see something on Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or Reddit or whatnot doesn't mean people are actually going to see it. And so a lot of brands want to be on every single channel, and it just, no one can see you in this noise. Like if you have 2 followers and your audience is not on Twitter, you don't need to be on Twitter and invest the resources to go after that. But number 2, which seems kind of counter to that, is when you respond to a review, positive or negative, you have an opportunity not only to change that review, but more importantly, collect additional feedback. So if you go to my Twitter, you'll see there are hundreds of people that are retweeting our articles or saying we had a great time on the podcast. And so I can say thank you, or have a bot say thank you, or have a VA come in and say thank you. But you know what's smarter is to say, Maureen, it was so awesome having you on the show. What was the one thing that really stuck out to you? And then Maureen will say, well, it was when you talked about the $1 a day method and how you used ads to be able to promote videos of customers talking about you. I never thought that you could do that. So now I've gathered a second review. And then to be legally compliant, we reply to them saying, wow, thank you so much, Maureen. Can I quote you on that? And then Maureen will say, well, yes, of course. I mean, it's already public. And that's legally called lightweight consent. So when you reply to somebody, positive or negative, it's an opportunity to gather another review and gather more audience, more content, more exposure against their audience and your audience. So think about this as all part of reputation and social, right? It's not just I need to respond to the review and try to make things more positive.
I would just add to that some review sites allow a conversation, Facebook, Twitter. Some review sites, Google, Yelp, allow a single, well, Yelp is a little more, single conversation. Google is user leaves a review, business responds. If a business responds, then the user can change the review, but there's no threaded conversation. So some sites allow for threaded conversation, and I think that's one of the powers of Facebook and the social sites is that they can have an ongoing conversation so people can see multiple aspects of your response, but others don't. So it depends on the site that you're working on.
I'm curious, Mike, of the people that leave say a negative review on any particular channel, Yelp or Google or whatnot, what % of the time are they doing it on multiple channels?
Rarely. It's only the real super powerful and really angry people that leave it on multiple channels. But just a negative, bad review. And oftentimes people leave a review because they feel obligated to the community to educate others. And again, they'll do it on their primary channel, whether that's Facebook or Google or Yelp. So it's very rare that they'll nail you every place possible, just really rare. People are, for the most part, reasonable, and you have to treat them as such. And if you treat them as jerks, they're going to behave like jerks. So I think that there's a dialectic that goes on, that if you respect customers the way you're talking about, then they will respond to you better because they see that you respond. In fact, there's some research in the hotel industry that indicated that hotels that responded actually had about a 1/4 point better rating than those that didn't. And it seems to modulate the conversation to some extent by you being present in the conversation.
All right, so I'm going to ask each of you, positive or negative, what review had the most impact on you? So either a positive one that impacted your business, or a negative one. I know, Mike, you paid yours off, but
the one that impacted me was when my wife said yes. What a positive review that was. It's like it's 31 years, 2 children later. It's like, hey, 5 stars.
For me, I'm going to probably say positives. We've had maybe one negative review in the past 8 years with this business, and that was from somebody who didn't understand how to hit cancel in a piece of software, which actually we took that feedback and made it easier for them to cancel, right? So that was good, but it didn't have any impact really. But reading through the positive reviews that we get, I take those and I look at every single one of those and I respond to every single one of those. And for me, it definitely gives me a good sense of pride in the fact that we are doing a good job and that we're actually impacting people's lives. And that's the most important thing is that when you realize the impact that you have on your customers' lives, then you really just enjoy what you do. So yeah, from an impact is the positives and understanding how we impact our customers' lives.
Mike or Dennis, any particular positive review that stands out to you that you received, or negative or negative one that stands out to you?
Well, for me, reviews, positive or negative, are worth the information that's in them, right? So if I have this thinking that complaints are the building blocks of your business, and if you can solve them, so if a review comes in and it gives you a criticism, whether it's positive or negative review, if you can fix it for the next person, then that's the best review. And every review, I view them that way. The ones with information that help me improve are the ones that I like the best, even if they sting a little at first.
Yeah. And reviews are a great source of marketing because it's your customers' words. So if you guys follow Todd Herman and the 5 questions, when you ask people when they first sign up with your product or service, what was it that made you make the decision to sign up with us, they'll reveal some kind of detail. And if you transcribe that in a Zoom call, you build it into your operations process, 5 minutes Zoom, you can actually take that and use that as headlines, as copy and whatnot. One company, they have a kitchen product, and the mom said something like, when Jennifer was asking, where are the Wheaties? Oh, wow, I never really thought about that, right? So then that became a subject line that worked really well, doubled their open rate. When you listen to those reviews, especially if you can record them in a 5-minute Zoom, not just, you still can use the automated tools to do all that kind of, text messaging and all that, but when you actually listen and you see why the customer bought, when you ask them at the point when they bought, why they did that, and then at the end, where you're delivering the service, delivering the wedding cake, fixing the garage door, to how do you feel, now you have two completely different points. If you can ask for that feedback before the delivery of service, but right when they've bought, you're going to get a much cleaner view. And it's amazing market research, and it's great to grab those snippets for marketing. And so we've done that and captured thousands of these 5-minute calls and pulled those things out. Your customers will write better headlines than you ever could.
Yeah, good advice. I know you spoke a bit about kind of that, getting that light approval because it's out in the public. We also had a question around for video testimonials and reviews. At the time of shooting, is it best practice to get your customers to sign a media release to be able to use that information?
If they're in your office, you can capture media release. What we'll do, for example, in these chiropractor or med spa, we have a lot of these doctors, is we'll train these people to pull up their phone and say, hey, would you mind if I asked you a couple questions so we could share it on social media? And they're always going to say that. They'll say yes, but usually they'll think, well, what about my hair? Or what about, don't worry, we're going to make you look good. And then you literally just interview them like you're looking at them, and you hold the camera, you hold the phone at a 45-degree angle like this, and you ask them a couple questions. And when you ask that first question of what was it that made you, what inspired you to choose us? They'll say, well, good pricing. I had referrals, or a friend also used you guys. And they'll give you an okay answer. But then the key is, especially with video, you have to ask them again. You have to say, awesome. Thanks, Maureen. Let's do that one more time. Tell me again, why is it that did you choose us? And the second time they do it, it's going to have more energy. It's going to have more passion, not because it was kind of fake the first time, but the first time someone is giving an answer, their brain is still putting the words together. And then it's not going to come off as strong. So they can, now that they know the words, they're going to be able to put some emotion and some energy behind it, and you get a much, much better video. And almost no business owner I know realizes that it's okay to ask the question a second time, and that second video is going to be so much better. Imagine, Maureen, if I said, you asked me for a testimonial, or one of your team members asked me, and I said, yeah, Alignable, I like them. I'm able to generate more leads, and I like the, how I can go and create a profile and build a network. I think it's a cool tool, right? And it's not, it's still a good review. It's still positive, but what if you said, that's awesome, Dennis, one more time, just for the camera so I can make sure I captured it properly, right? What was it that caused you to sign up with Alignable? Well, Maureen, I really love Alignable, and then blah, blah, and I say it with more passion and more clarity. You see how much better that second time is?
Absolutely. And I will say from experience, being older, sometimes it takes the older person even a little longer than 2 takes to kind of really get the words together. So that's I think the customer wants to look good as well on the video. So I think asking that is.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah. So do I. Right back at you. So we have about 5 minutes left. We'll do a last call for questions. And as our audience is submitting some additional questions, I'd look to the three of you, if you had to give your best 2 pieces of advice to this audience for how to leverage customer reviews, how would you sum that up, kind of what you've said today, your 2 most important things? Let's start with Ben.
Sure. So 2 most important things. Number 1 is it's going to be repetition here, but the first thing is respond to all your reviews, and respond to your negative reviews, and think about the human beings that are looking at those reviews and going to read them and judge you and do business with you based on those responses. So that's the first part. Second part is going to be focus on learning about your business, get a couple first-party reviews, and really use it and internalize it and put it, and like Mike was saying and like Dennis is saying, is use it in your marketing material and use it to really just give it to everybody that's in your organization from the top down, and use it as a tool internally. Dennis?
to reframe reviews, because there's so many different channels now. Every day there's another social media channel or whatnot. Everything is a review. And the most powerful review is when you are with somebody on video. So after this call is over, I'm going to hit up Mike and say, Mike, I'd love to interview you on my podcast to share the top tips in local. SEO, PR, social, reviews, testimonials, all of these are actually all the same thing, because it's all the creation of content of someone else talking about you. And when it's obviously a testimonial, well, oh yeah, I really like, Maureen, I really like Ben Fisher. Well, of course, people are going to expect that. So if you want an authentic, believable, high authority review, you need to capture it on video where you're interviewing them about who they are. So you're more of a journalist, and you teach your team to be more like a journalist instead of, I'm just trying to use these automated tools to capture as many 5 stars as I can. That's where the game is headed.
Great. And I won't hold it against you that you didn't say you were going to interview Ben or I on your podcast. So
I want to interview both of you guys too. That was the example, right?
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Absolutely, Dennis.
I have 3 brief points. One is know where your digital customers are coming from. Understand which channel is delivering leads, and then bake the review process into your customer acquisition, customer sales, and customer follow-up process so that it just happens. It's done as part of that. And then leverage these reviews, learn how to leverage the reviews for not just validation, not just rank, not just social proof, not just content, but for business improvement as well, because they're a rich source. And in a world in which customers tell your brand story, ultimately it's how you're going to win that fight or that battle for the next customer.
Great advice. To our audience, I'm going to leave you with 2 challenges. One is, Dave put it in the chat, but head on over to the Perfecting Customer Service group on Alignable, a great way to continue this conversation and interact with some of your peers. Also, just as a way to keep shining the light on all of you small business owners, I wanted to just share that Alignable has kicked off a movement called #OneMainStreet, and we're asking everyone, including Mike, Ben, and Dennis, to take a picture of yourself when you're frequenting your local favorite business, pop it up on social with that hashtag, just as a great way to remind the world outside of this community of the importance of supporting our small business owners. I'm going to thank Mike, Ben, and Dennis. You guys were a great panel for us. I think you left the audience with some really great tips. And I'm going to pass it on over to Dave Walker to kind of see us out.
Thanks, Maureen, and thanks to all of you for attending this session of Small Biz Aid Live. And guys, absolutely a terrific session. Again, to continue the conversation, please join the Alignable Small Business Group at the link I just provided in chat. Recordings of this session will be available within 48 hours, and links to each of these recorded sessions will be provided for free on our event page within the agenda. Thank you again for attending, and have a great day. And if you want to stay here for the next session, please don't touch anything, just stay right where you are. Thanks, everyone.